Hello, my name is Daniel. Thank you for being here with me today. If you enjoy real, heartbreaking, cheating stories from Reddit, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It really means a lot to me. This is one of those stories that sticks to your ribs, one that leaves a bitter taste in your mouth long after it's over. It's about betrayal, not just from a partner, but from everyone you thought had your back. When I was in college, I became part of a small, tight-knit group of 7. We were all studying architecture at a university in upstate New York. And over the years, we stayed close, even after graduation. Among us were 4 women and 3 men. One of them, Brendan, was my roommate and closest friend. We met during orientation, and from that day on, we were basically brothers. No one knew me like Brendan did. And then there was Delilah. She was one of the original members of the group, someone Brendan had known first, but I met her when I was 21. We started dating that year. I'm 29 now, so it's been 8 long years. 8 years of holidays together, late-night talks about the future, sharing rent, dreaming of kids. I truly thought we were going to build something real, something permanent. That's what makes what happened next so devastating. Recently, Brendan got married. He invited the entire group to a beautiful mountain lodge in Vermont for a weekend wedding. Delilah and I drove up together. We were both part of the bridal party. She had been strangely quiet during the drive, but I brushed it off as wedding nerves. We'd been fighting a lot in the past few months, mostly about marriage. I had been ready to take the next step, but she kept pushing back, said she wasn't sure, said I needed to focus more on work. That didn't sit right with me. I run my family's boutique furniture business. I've worked hard. I'm financially stable. I've always pictured myself being one of those guys who balances work and family, who builds something bigger than himself. But Delilah kept shutting the conversation down. Her reasons felt hollow, like she was trying to dodge something she didn't want to face. Still, I didn't suspect she was cheating. That thought didn't even cross my mind. We had our problems, sure, but we always found our way back to each other. Or at least, I thought we did. Until that weekend. We arrived the day before the wedding. That evening there was a rehearsal dinner. I was supposed to go, but I ended up skipping it. The drive had worn me out, and my migraines were acting up again. I've had them for years, usually triggered by stress or exhaustion. I stayed in the room to rest, hoping some sleep would help. But later that night, the pain became unbearable, and I realized I'd left my medication at home. I had to drive out and find a pharmacy. That's how I ended up in the parking lot. I never should have gone back to the car. But I didn't want to walk far with the pain in my head, so I made my way toward it, half-dazed, and that's when I saw them. Brendan and Delilah. In my car. Kissing. Touching. Lost in each other like no one else existed. I froze. For maybe 30, 40 seconds, I just stood there, rooted to the asphalt, my hands shaking. At first, I didn't believe it. I wanted it to be a hallucination, some cruel illusion created by my migraine. But no, it was real. So real it made my stomach turn. And the worst part? They looked comfortable, familiar, like this wasn't their first time. I turned and walked away before they could see me. I didn't make a sound. I didn't scream or confront them or cry. I just walked. Slowly, like I was underwater. I made it back to my room and sat on the edge of the bed, gripping the mattress until my knuckles went white. Then I cried. Quiet, heavy sobs that felt like they were ripping something out of me. Everything I thought I knew, my relationship, my friendship, my place in that group, crumbled in a single moment. And still, that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came later, when I found out everyone else had known all along. I didn't know where else to go. After seeing Brendan and Delilah in my car like that, I couldn't bring myself to confront them right away. I felt too broken, too fragile. So instead, I walked toward my friend Harper's room. I needed to talk to someone, anyone, someone who could tell me I wasn't losing my mind, someone who might help me make sense of what I'd just seen. But as I got closer to the door, I heard voices, laughing, familiar ones. It was the whole group. Everyone from our old college circle was inside, talking, drinking, reminiscing. At first, I felt this dull sense of comfort. Maybe I could go in and just sit with them, even if I didn't bring it up right away. But then I heard something that stopped me cold. Delilah's name. Brendan's too. Followed by laughter. I stood frozen, just outside the door, listening to the people I once considered my family joke about how clueless I was. Someone, I think it was Isaac, the only other guy in our group, laughed and said something like, "Honestly, I don't know how Theo hasn't caught them yet. They're getting reckless." Theo. That's me. I'm 29 years old. I thought I had people in my life who cared about me. Turns out I was just the punchline. They talked about how Brendan and Delilah had been sneaking around for months, even during the wedding planning. One of them joked about the engagement party, how they'd hooked up again that night after I left early because of a migraine. That made the laughter even louder. No one said anything to stop it. No one defended me. Not one voice of hesitation. And that's when it hit me. They had all known. All of them. They had been watching this unfold, covering for it, even enabling it. And I was the fool. I didn't go in. I didn't knock. I just turned around and walked away. Hands clenched at my sides, heart pounding in my ears. They didn't see me. They were too drunk, too wrapped up in their little circle of cruelty. Back in my room, I collapsed on the bed and cried. Not soft tears, but the kind that shake your whole body, the kind that leave your chest aching and your eyes burning. But after about 15 minutes, I stopped, and I started planning. If they thought I was clueless, if they thought I was weak, then they had no idea what I was capable of. I decided then and there that I wasn't going to let this go quietly. If Brendan and Delilah wanted to humiliate me behind closed doors, then I was going to return the favor, with the lights on, and the whole world watching. So when Delilah came back to the room that night, I said nothing. I smiled. I acted like nothing had happened. We went to sleep in the same bed. And in the morning, I greeted everyone like I always did. I waited. Then, just before the ceremony began, while everyone was gathering outside by the lake, I stepped forward. I told the wedding coordinator I wanted to say a few words, a speech in honor of the groom. There were some puzzled looks. Brendan looked confused, maybe even touched. He probably thought I was going to give some heartfelt toast, maybe talk about our college days. What a mistake that was. I took the mic and looked at the crowd. Then I looked at Brendan, at Delilah, at the group of friends who had laughed behind my back. And I told the truth. I told everyone what I'd seen the night before in the parking lot. I told them what I had overheard outside Harper's room. I told them about the engagement party and all the other times my friends had covered for this affair. I laid it all out, voice steady, hands trembling. You could have heard a pin drop. Delilah tried to grab my arm, whispering for me to stop. Brendan's face went pale, then red, then pale again. He started yelling, accusing me of jealousy, saying I was just bitter because Delilah wouldn't marry me, that I was trying to ruin his day. But he was too defensive, too loud, and that made people believe me. His fiancée, now ex, I guess, stood in shock for a moment, then stepped down from the altar and walked away. Brendan followed, desperate and shouting. The entire ceremony fell into chaos. I didn't stay to watch the fallout. I shook Delilah's hand off my sleeve, walked to the parking lot, and left. I had already packed my bags that morning. I didn't say goodbye to anyone. 3 days have passed since. I didn't hear anything for the first 2 days, but yesterday Delilah messaged me. She said she and Brendan had made a mistake, but what I did was psychotic, that I hadn't just ruined the wedding, I'd destroyed his life. Apparently, Brendan's parents don't want anything to do with him now. His fiancée has blocked him. He has nowhere to stay. And somehow, I'm the villain. I don't feel bad. Not yet. Brendan's life unraveled fast after the wedding. And I'll be honest, Delilah was right about one thing. My speech didn't just ruin his wedding, it ripped the rug out from under everything he had been counting on. He's not just heartbroken, he's homeless. Apparently, Brendan had been depending on this wedding to bail him out financially. He never said it out loud, of course, but now it all makes sense. He wasn't in love, he was looking for a lifeline. And his bride-to-be, Samantha, was his ticket. They hadn't met through some family connection earlier this year like they had told everyone. That story about mutual family friends, a complete fabrication. In reality, they met on a dating app. Samantha is 35, 6 years older than Brendan, and from what I've heard since the fallout, she was under serious pressure from her family. Her parents had drawn a line in the sand. Settle down or risk losing everything. They had made it clear that if she didn't marry soon, her inheritance would go to her younger sister instead. Samantha didn't want a traditional marriage. She wanted something open, something with freedom. But that's not something her family would have ever accepted. So she'd been on the hunt for someone who would play along, someone who didn't care about love or monogamy, just appearances. That someone turned out to be Brendan. He wasn't exactly enthusiastic about getting married either. In fact, he'd been unemployed for almost a year. He'd jumped from one thing to another, real estate, marketing, freelance photography, but nothing stuck. He always said he was still finding himself, but really he was just waiting for a shortcut. Marrying rich seemed like the perfect solution. They struck a deal. Samantha would get her respectable marriage and keep her inheritance. Brendan would get financial security and avoid having to get a real job. It was convenient, sleek, deceptive. And then I blew it all up. My speech exposed more than just infidelity. It shattered the illusion they had both built for their families. Samantha's parents, unaware of their private arrangement, were humiliated. There was no way they were going to let their daughter marry someone who had just been publicly accused of cheating, with his best friend's girlfriend, no less. She left Brendan without looking back. Wedding canceled, arrangement over. And Brendan? He'd been staying at her place for the past few months, living rent-free, contributing nothing. He'd even quit his last sales job, confident that once he was married, he wouldn't need to worry about money anymore. Now, he's out on the street. His parents won't take him back in. They're too embarrassed. He has no income, no degree that leads to anything practical, no fallback plan. Delilah reached out to tell me all of this yesterday. Her message dripped with bitterness. According to her, what I did was cruel. She wrote, "You didn't just ruin his wedding, you destroyed his entire future." Apparently, I'm supposed to feel bad. But I don't. Not for Brendan. He built his house out of lies and got mad when the wind knocked it down. He betrayed me, laughed behind my back, and tried to blame me when it all crumbled. I don't owe him pity. What he needs isn't sympathy, it's a wake-up call. Maybe now, without someone else to lean on, he'll finally get his act together. Maybe he'll stop treating people like stepping stones. Maybe he'll find a job and stick with it. Maybe he'll start building something for real. But there is one thing I do feel conflicted about. His parents. I've met them. They're good people. Kind, gracious, genuinely warm. They treated me like family the few times I visited, and I know how proud they were of Brendan. My speech, it didn't just expose him, it embarrassed them, and they didn't deserve that. That's the part I keep thinking about. I could have pulled Brendan aside. I could have ended things with Delilah quietly. I could have avoided dragging two families through the mud. But instead, I stood up and set fire to everything in front of 100 people. And even though I was angry, hurt beyond words, it doesn't sit right. Not entirely. So now I'm sitting with that guilt, wondering if I crossed a line. Not for Brendan, not for Delilah, but for the innocent bystanders who got caught in the blast. Was I the jerk for exposing them like that? It's hard to say. Maybe there was a better way, a more mature way, a way that didn't leave a trail of scorched earth behind me. But when I stood on that stage and looked into their faces, all the fake smiles, the whispered lies, I just snapped. I couldn't hold it in any longer. So yeah, I might have gone too far, but I'd been pushed to my limit, and no one ever cared how I felt when they were laughing behind closed doors. That speech was the only time I had a voice, and for better or worse, I used it. Most of what I know about Brendan and Delilah's affair came from that night, standing outside that hotel room door, listening to the people I once trusted joke about my life like it was a bad sitcom. They weren't even trying to be discreet. They laughed about how obvious it all was. Isaac's joke about them sneaking around even during the engagement party stuck with me. That was the night I left early because of one of my migraines. Those migraines have been with me since high school. They don't just come and go. They steal time from me. When they hit, I can't think, I can't stand, I can barely see. Loud environments make it worse, so I often leave events early just to rest. Over the years, I saw dozens of doctors, tried every kind of medication, adjusted my diet, my sleep, everything. Still, they linger. Delilah knew this. Every time I left a gathering early, she stayed. And I never once questioned it. I didn't want to be the kind of partner who controlled her or asked her to give up her night just because I was in pain. I told myself it was only fair to let her enjoy time with our friends, even when I had to go home. And for 8 years, I believed she was doing just that, enjoying herself, laughing, living. Now I can't stop thinking about what else was happening when I was lying alone in a dark room, clutching my skull, trying to block out the world. How many times did I fall asleep in pain while she was in someone else's arms? It makes me sick. But it's over now. Whatever they had, they can keep it. Brendan and Delilah are free to keep sneaking around or stop sneaking and just be public with it. I honestly don't care anymore. They deserve each other, both selfish, both dishonest. Though I doubt it will last. Delilah was never the kind of woman Brendan fantasized about ending up with. She's not wealthy, not flashy, and she's certainly not the type to bankroll a man's entire existence. I remember her telling me once how much she hated the idea of being the main breadwinner in a relationship. It's too much pressure, she said. Back then, I respected that, thought it showed strength and honesty. Now I see it for what it is, just another incompatibility between them. Brendan doesn't want to work, and Delilah can't stand the thought of supporting someone like him. It's a disaster waiting to happen, but that's not my problem anymore. Update 1. It's been 2 days since I posted everything. I haven't responded to Delilah's message about Brendan. I don't see the point. She said I was cruel, that I overreacted, that I ruined lives. But I'm not sorry. Not one bit. I was in pain, and I reacted. If that makes me a monster, so be it. Brendan is the one who shattered something sacred. I just held up a mirror. Sure, maybe his parents were hurt in the crossfire, and I do feel bad about that. They were always kind to me. They didn't deserve to be pulled into this, but Brendan, he earned every consequence that came his way. I haven't spoken to anyone from our group since the wedding. I've blocked all of them, every single one. Brendan was the first. Delilah's the only one I haven't blocked yet, and that's only because she still has things at my place. Once that's handled, I'm cutting her off too. I've already boxed everything. Her books, her sweaters, the toothbrush she left in the bathroom, the notes we used to write to each other that I found in the drawer. Everything. It's all in a corner near the front door. When she comes by, she can grab it and go. I don't want a long conversation. I don't want tears or apologies. I just want her gone. I can't look at her stuff without feeling something twist inside me. Anger, sadness, emptiness. It's all there. Update 2. It's been 9 days. Delilah texted me this morning to say she'd be coming by in the evening to collect her things. I said that was fine. She hadn't reached out since the day after the wedding, so I assumed she would just grab the boxes and leave. I hope she would anyway. I needed this to be quick, clean, final. When she showed up, I opened the door and handed her the first box without saying anything. But instead of taking it and walking away, she looked around the living room and asked if she could check the rest of the house in case I'd missed something. I didn't want to let her in. I really didn't. But she looked determined, and I knew if I said no, she'd find a way to drag things out even longer. So I stepped aside. She walked past me like she still belonged there, and for a second, the air felt heavier, colder. I followed her in silence, watching her gather a few more forgotten items, a scarf, a pair of earrings, a framed photo I thought I had already thrown out. And still she didn't leave. I should have told her no. When Delilah asked to come inside and look around, I hesitated. I'd already packed everything. Her clothes, her books, the framed photo from our trip to Acadia, the candle she always lit on rainy days. I thought I had covered all the bases, but she insisted, and something in me, maybe exhaustion, maybe habit, let her in. She moved through the house like she still lived there. She found a few things I had missed, a necklace tangled in the drawer of our old nightstand, a pair of socks stuck behind the laundry machine, a journal she used to keep on the coffee table. I watched in silence, waiting for her to finish and leave. But she didn't. Instead of boxing everything up and walking out the door, she stayed. She stood in the middle of the living room, holding her things, looking around like she was taking in the space one last time. Then she sat down on the edge of the couch, her fingers tracing the armrest like it held some forgotten comfort. It became awkward, painfully awkward. I asked her, gently at first, if she was planning to go. I told her it was getting late. That's when she said it. I thought maybe we could talk. It's been a little while, and I was hoping you'd be more open now. The way she said it, you'd think months had passed, years even. Like time had softened everything, but it hadn't even been 2 weeks since I stood in front of 100 people and told them what she and Brendan had done. Not even 14 days since I learned my best friend and the woman I loved had been sneaking behind my back. More than anything, I was angry at how calm she was, how composed, like we were just 2 exes trying to sort out a breakup, instead of 2 people staring at the wreckage she helped create. I told her I was crystal clear in my message. She was welcome here for one reason only, to get her things, and now that she had them, she had no reason to stay. But she didn't take the hint. Instead, she started pushing back. Look, I know I cheated, Theo, but can you stop pretending like you were perfect? You weren't. You have your own flaws, and I'm not the only one who made mistakes. I froze. Up until that point, I had been biting my tongue, doing my best to stay civil. But something in me broke the moment she said that. Something deep, something raw. I lost it. I yelled. Not because I thought yelling would fix anything, but because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I couldn't believe she had the audacity to stand in my living room and suggest that any of this was my fault. I'm not perfect. God, I know that. I've made my share of mistakes. I've said things I regret. But I never cheated. I never betrayed her. I never used someone else's love as a safety net while I explored other options. And yet here she was, saying I drove her to it. Of course, I knew what she was going to say next. She started bringing up our arguments from the past year, about marriage, about settling down, about how I was ready and she wasn't, about how she felt pressured, how she didn't want to lose herself. She said she had only ever been with me, that she didn't know who she was outside of this relationship, that she needed to figure herself out before she became someone's wife or mother. I listened, I really did, but all I could hear was the excuse wrapped around her betrayal, as if sleeping with my best friend was a natural detour on the road to self-discovery. If she truly felt that we were heading in different directions, there were ways to handle it. We could have talked. We could have cried. We could have parted ways like adults. But she didn't want that. She wanted to keep me close while tasting something new. She wanted the comfort of my loyalty while chasing someone else's attention. And now she was calling me toxic for not being okay with that. The gaslighting, the rewriting of history, the false equivalence between my desire to start a life with her and her decision to sleep with Brendan, it was too much. I shouted until my throat hurt, until the words came out broken and hoarse. But she didn't back down. She kept defending herself, saying she was under pressure, that Brendan understood her in a way I never could. I asked her to leave, again and again, but she didn't move. She just stood there, saying I needed to take responsibility too, that I wasn't blameless, that this was both our fault. But I knew better. It wasn't both of us. It was her and Brendan. Delilah just wouldn't stop. Even after everything, the betrayal, the lies, the silence from her side for days, she stood there in my living room trying to paint us as equally guilty. She said I needed to understand that I wasn't perfect, that I had been just as toxic as she was, that I had my own issues, and that I shouldn't pretend like I didn't contribute to the collapse of our relationship. Her words hit like tiny needles, annoying at first, but eventually sharp enough to sting. I wanted to scream again, but my voice was already strained from the last round. I felt like I was slipping into a fog of exhaustion, heartbreak, and disbelief. I thought about calling the police, not because I was afraid, but because I was just so done. I wanted her gone, but I was so worked up the thought didn't really land properly until much later, after the storm had passed and my head had cleared. Eventually, I couldn't take another word. I walked to the front door, pulled it open, and stood silently beside it. My message was clear. No yelling, no more arguments, just an open exit and a silent invitation to use it. Delilah kept talking, kept defending herself, kept grasping for justifications I couldn't bring myself to entertain. She rambled on about pressure, confusion, and how Brendan saw her in ways I never could. But I said nothing. I didn't nod, I didn't blink. I just stared at the hallway behind her and waited. It took her a while to finally get it. As she stepped past me with her boxes, she turned and said, "You can pretend you were the saint in all of this, Theo, but you and I both know it takes two people to ruin something like this." And in a way, she was right. It did take two people. It took her and Brendan. But I didn't say that out loud. It wasn't worth it. If I had, it would have opened the door for another argument. and I didn't have the strength for another round. So I just shut the door behind her. For the first time in days, the house felt quiet again. Not peaceful, just quiet. The kind of quiet that's too heavy to enjoy. I stood there for a while, hands still clenched, heart still pounding. I had to sit down just to breathe properly. Even when we were together, Delilah had a hard time admitting when she was wrong. I used to find it oddly endearing, her stubbornness, the way she clung to her point of view like it was armor. But now it just felt cruel and exhausting. I'm glad she left when she did. Honestly, if she had stayed even 5 minutes longer, I think I might have said something I would have regretted forever. Or worse, thrown something in frustration. That's not the kind of person I want to be. So, I blocked her number. And then, I blocked the last of the others. Everyone from our old college group. Every fake friend who stood by and said nothing. Brendan had been the first one I cut off, but it felt good to finish the job. Now it's time to focus on myself. I've been going to the gym regularly, nothing crazy, just a way to burn the stress and get out of my own head. I've started journaling too. Not every day, but when the ache gets too loud to ignore. It helps, a little. It's not easy. After all, we were together for 8 years. That kind of bond doesn't just vanish. It leaves something behind, a mark, a bruise under the skin you can't quite touch. But I'm trying. I'm doing my best to heal without letting that pain define me. Update 3. It's been 2 years. I've thought about writing this update for a long time, but only now did I feel ready. Life has changed. Work is going better than ever. Our small furniture business has taken off, and I've found a rhythm that feels right. I've become somewhat of a fitness nut, too. Not for vanity, but for clarity, for the structure, for the peace it brings me. I haven't spoken to a single person from that old college group. Not once. And I don't care how they're doing. I truly don't. They don't exist in my world anymore, and I intend to keep it that way. My family, bless them, never left my side. They checked in constantly, reminded me that I still mattered, that I was loved. I'll always be grateful for that. Friend-wise, I keep my circle small now. A few old high school friends, a couple of coworkers, people who've earned my trust, not just inherited it. And I've started seeing someone. It's still new, still gentle. One of my close friends introduced me to her cousin at a birthday party about 2 months ago. Her name's Julia. She's kind, thoughtful, patient in a way that doesn't feel forced. From the moment we met, I felt something shift, a small flicker, a sense that maybe, not now, but someday, I could love again. We're taking it slow. I told her everything about Delilah, about Brendan, about the years of quiet heartbreak. And she listened, really listened. She didn't flinch. She didn't pity me. She just said, "Take your time. I'm not going anywhere." She wants the same things I do. A quiet life, a steady love, a family of her own one day. And for the first time in a long time, I'm starting to believe that I might get those things. Meanwhile, Brendan and Delilah got married. Yeah, they actually went through with it a couple months after everything. But they didn't even make it a full year. I heard through someone that they're already divorced. I'd be lying if I said I felt bad. I don't. I doubt Brendan and Delilah learned anything from what they did. Maybe they'll hurt someone else the way they hurt me. Maybe they already have. Some people go their whole lives refusing to change, blaming the world for the damage they cause. I used to hope they'd grow up, feel some kind of remorse. Now, I just hope they stay far away from anyone who's kind and trusting. They were never really sorry. Just sorry they got caught. But even with that, I can finally say, I'm over it. Not in the it doesn't hurt at all kind of way. It still aches sometimes. 8 years doesn't just vanish. But I've built something better since then. A quieter, steadier kind of life. One that doesn't revolve around waiting for someone to love me the right way. One where I love myself first. So, yeah, I'm happy now. And that's something no one can take from me. This story isn't just about cheating. It's about trust, silence, and what happens when we ignore our instincts for too long. So many people stay in relationships where they feel like they're walking on eggshells or constantly giving more than they receive, hoping that time will fix things. It doesn't always. If you're in a relationship that leaves you confused, drained, or doubting your worth, stop and ask yourself why. Love shouldn't be something you have to chase, prove, or survive. And if someone betrays you, it's not your job to carry their shame. Protect your peace. Set boundaries. Pay attention to how people make you feel when no one's watching. Healing takes time. But the moment you choose yourself over someone who keeps hurting you, that's when real healing begins, and it's worth every step.